through with Porsche in that series. Why that car?
Here in Australia, I wanted to go down the pathway that enabled me with the most opportunities, and that was the Porsche path.
What was the actual most challenging aspect to achieving that?
It was the consistency. I think part of the reason why people fall in love with motorsport is the fact that when you do put the helmet on, a lot of other thoughts disappear. In a car, there's the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system, and the more sort of highly strung you are, the more you get tunnel vision and the more reactive you're driving, and everything should be instinctive and feeling.
You go through 2022 and you achieve that goal.
It was pretty awesome. The final round was on the streets of the Gold Coast. All of my family, all of my sponsors, it makes it all worthwhile.
Have you ever chased a childhood hobby so far it became your career? I sat down with Harri Jones, Australia's Porsche Carrera Cup champion and now V8 Supercars hopeful, to unpack what it really takes to climb the motorsport ladder. From late starts to European circuits, building his own race team and training the next generation. Harri's story is about relentless ambition, learning to learn, and the mastering focus under pressure. Whether you love racing or just love stories about pushing the limit, this episode will grip you. So buckle up. Let's get into it. Well, Harri Jones, welcome to the show.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're the very first, out of 110 episodes now, you're the very first professional driver that we've had. What does it take to be the best in your industry?
Yeah, it's definitely it's not easy. It's taken basically 10 years of hard work nonstop to climb every day closer to my goals in this sport.
What was the dream? What's the overall outcome that you're trying to achieve?
Initially, I got into motorsport literally just as a chance to go to racetracks with my dad and enjoy time together and get some, I guess, real world experience in a car before I actually get my L plates. And basically, initially it was like every day you're in a race car, it's like a defensive driving course. So more than anything, it was for road safety. But then once I got a taste, I fell in love, and in that competition aspect, it's been a reason why I wake up every morning.
Did it start with karting?
No, it actually started in Formula Ford.
Yeah.
So
single-seater still?
Single-seater, yeah. So the Formula Ford basically looks like a mini Formula One car with no wings, and it weighs, I think, 420 kilos. It's got 130 horsepower and very little tyres. So awesome cars to learn racecraft, to learn the fundamentals of driving a race car. But the point that I entered, I was basically coming in at the same point that kids were coming out of go-karts. So, they've had a career of 6-7 years already. And I'm just trying to find my feet. So it was a steep learning curve early on. But I think, when you've got a passion for something and there's good people around you, you're able to find your feet pretty quick.
And is it an instinctual thing about going around corners and understanding explain it to me, paint the picture, because I've never, it's not my world, right? I would say a greater than average Formula One fan.
Yeah, cool.
But yeah, is it curiosity in your mind growing up as you're racing saying, well, how did I not win that? Or what's the processes internally when you say these kids have had 6 or 7 years in karting? Yeah. Is it that motor imprint in their brain in terms of how much acceleration, how much braking, how much what is it?
Yeah, I think so. There's one part of it that's actually understanding how to drive the car, and there's the other part knowing how to race other cars. So there's sort of two different things you have to learn. So I think I could teach you how to drive a car in a few days and you could get up to speed and be there or thereabouts, but it takes years of experience to understand racecraft and basically be able to read a car on a racetrack like you could read body language. So I can understand what someone's doing before they're even going to do it. And That's sort of the
in front
art.
of you or behind
exactly.
you. Exactly. Yeah.
It's like the easiest way to explain it is it's like playing chess at 200 k's an hour.
Okay. Cool, yeah. Cool. You're in the single seater. You've had tasted some success there as well.
Yeah.
How long did that take to get that success? And as a kid growing up on the Sunshine Coast as well, we all want to get our L plates sooner than not.
Yeah.
But what do you think was the critical bit that led you to go into that sport more?
Growing up, I was exposed to a lot of different types of competition. My oldest brother He grew up sailing. I'm the youngest of three boys. My middle brother grew up surfing and ended up doing that he was a professional surfer. So I sort of grew up tasting a bunch of different sports. Loved mountain biking, surfing, sailing, driving cars, doing whatever, I could do to go out and have fun on weekends. And I think growing up in that environment, you learn how to learn, and you sort of, I don't know. I think once I jumped into a car, I understood all of the things that sort of came away from the track in terms of a sporty mindset. And then it was just a matter of understanding the technicalities of the sport itself, which in motorsport, it's never ending. Like, I'm still learning to this day when it comes to driving a race car. But yeah, I think I didn't have immediate success in the sport, and I never expected that either.
Mhm.
So it wasn't like I was, thinking that I was failing on day one. I understood that there's a process to everything, and nothing, especially in this sport, nothing's immediate. So it wasn't really until probably my third year in the sport, in my final year of Formula Ford, that I even got a podium. So, if you're only doing a sport to win races, then you're not going to have much fun. So, and it made that podium even sweeter. And then from there, you sort of find your feet. You've got a taste for it, and you understand now what it took to get there, and then it's a bit easier to have success from that point. But yeah, it definitely wasn't instant.
Was there a moment where you were from I'm good at this and I'm improving to no, actually I can be the very best in this category in the country?
Yeah, that actually came a couple of years later again.
Interesting.
So even throughout my entire Formula Ford, I guess you could call it career, I didn't look at myself as a racing driver. It wasn't something that I envisioned myself as doing for a career. It was literally just for fun, and it was I definitely put time and effort into it, and I never slipped up on an opportunity, but I was pretty realistic from a young age and thinking, the kids around me were all looking at Formula One and wanted to get to there, but I was like, no, we're probably too late for Formula One. And then, yeah, it was really once I jumped into Porsche Sprint Challenge. I was 19 at the time, and that was a big commitment for us to make. Not only financially, like it's a big jump to go from open wheelers to a Porsche. We had to get sponsors on board. There was a bigger team I was racing for. There was a lot of people around me, and I think it took that commitment to really go all in on the sport. And the first race in Porsche Sprint Challenge, I sort of surprised myself. I put it on pole position. I got a podium straight away. And that year I ended up winning that championship. So, yeah, I think once I basically dedicated my life to the sport, the success came more frequently, and I realized it sort of clicked. Yeah, if you try hard and you put everything towards that one goal, that one goal is possible.
What was the going from single seat to the Porsche in that series? What did you see as the difference in terms of the teamwork around you?
It was just everything was bigger. So the team that I raced for in Formula Ford and Formula 3, there might have been 6 people on the team. There was a couple of mechanics, there was an engineer, and a team manager. And then in the Porsches, you've got teammates. I had 4 teammates in Porsche Sprint Challenge. The team was maybe 25 people big, and everything got a bit more intense. The racing was more intense. There were
How
more
old are you
people.
at this stage?
I was 19.
Wow.
So still young in the big scheme of things, but from a motorsport perspective, actually quite old. So that was a pretty rude awakening as well, especially that was down the track when I got to Europe. I felt like I was quite old by the time I got there. But yeah, coming back to Porsche Sprint Challenge, the biggest changes were then from a technical point of view. The driving style you needed to learn to drive a Porsche versus a Formula car is quite different. It's a different way to race the cars as well. Like an open wheelers, because you literally have exposed wheels, you can't rub each other, you can't touch other cars. But in Porsche racing, you actually can. It sounds counterintuitive to hit other cars, but it's sort of part of the process of racing. So
It's not game over with a flat tire.
correct, yeah. So yeah, there was a lot to learn from day one, but again, the team I raced for back then, they'd had 15 years of experience in their sport. They'd had a lot of successful drivers come through the ranks, and I could basically, stand on the shoulders of the people that came before me. I had the data, the onboard footage, the setups from everyone that used to race these cars. So you sort of hit the ground running in that environment, and that definitely enabled me to go to the next step.
And the history with Porsche in that series, why that car?
So in the world of motorsport, there's a few different avenues you can take. There is the open wheel pathway that basically takes you to Formula One. Or you can also go into what's called hypercar racing, which is basically the top level of world endurance racing. They race at Le Mans 24-hour, some pretty awesome and big events overseas. And then in Australia, there's also V8 Supercars. And worldwide, there's a GT program. So GT3 is basically the most common racing series in the world, and that's where you see cars like Ferraris, Lamborghinis, the Audis, all your top-end road cars, basically as a race car.
Right.
So here in Australia, I wanted to go down a pathway that enabled me with the most opportunities, and that was the Porsche pathway, because every single country, or there's actually 13 championships around the world that run Porsche Cup cars, and if you do well here in Australia, you can go over to Europe and race the exact same car on the world stage, and from those series, you get picked into GT programs or endurance programs, or it basically opens up your career to be whatever you want. You can also go from...
Whereas to your point, I guess, there's not too many people picking you out of a Commodore.
No. Well, you sort of pigeonhole yourself. If you go only into supercars, you can go Super 3, Super 2 into supercars, but that gives you sort of one opportunity to make it in the sport. Whereas if you go cup racing or Porsche racing, it's a lot more broad.
You have raced all those overseas cups, championships, or races rather, with the Porsche.
Yeah.
Anything that stepped out or banked in your memory in terms of highlights?
Yeah, I mean, once I won the Australian title back in 22, I got the opportunity to go and race Porsche Super Cup in 2023, which is the pinnacle of Porsche one-make racing worldwide. It follows the Formula One circuit through Europe, and I raced on tracks like Monaco, I raced at Spa, like all of these massive events. Iconic events that were bucket list items for me to go and race for the best team on the best tracks in the best series in the world. I took so much from that year, and I think it's only now looking back on it that you realize how much you progress in your own career, but also as a human being, exposed to those different environments, and just taking in everything that you get to see.
Hey guys, just popping in with a gentle reminder. If you're enjoying this episode, we'd love it if you'd gave it a like, hit subscribe, and leave a comment with your thoughts. It's free, and it really helps us grow and continue to share these stories that matter. Cheers. Take us back to that 2022 season. That was the goal from the beginning, to take the championship?
It was, yeah.
And then what did you see, and what was the actual most challenging aspect to achieving that?
It was the consistency throughout the year that really was the challenge. In our seasons, the way it works is we basically have 8 race weekends throughout a year. And it doesn't sound like many, but then you have 3 races per round, so 24 races over a season. And the way that the point structure works, you really just have to be on your A game every single event. So, even if there's tracks that you don't like, or I don't know, you just have to put aside all of the negative thoughts and really attack each weekend like it's the last one.
How do you do that? Like, whether it's in a Porsche car or a V8 or a Formula One, like I imagine, like anyone else, you've got 1,000 balls in the air, all these different responsibilities, but also things in life just aren't going well. But at the end of the day, when you put the helmet on and you sit in the seat, you've got to push all that out and just stay with what you've got to do and your job. We all have to do that. But, being a lawyer, I can do that, and I'm not doing that at 250 kilometers an hour around a corner. Like, how have you been able to develop the skill to be able to say, well, life's chaos, or something's not going right, or I'm having a Barney with my neighbor or something, right? Like, and then to be able to go, once the helmet's on, nothing else in this world matters for the next 45 minutes or hour.
I think part of the reason why people fall in love with motorsport is the fact that when you do put the helmet on, a lot of other thoughts disappear. It's almost like a natural thing. You put your helmet on and all of your mental focus is just on going out and driving the car. And it might be because it's an adrenaline sport. When you got, when you're going 250 k's an hour on a tight circuit, if you're thinking of something else, you're probably going to crash. So it might be easier doing what I'm doing to make that happen. But at the end of the day, you still have to mentally reset and compose yourself, especially if you do make a mistake on track. That's sort of the biggest thing that took me time to learn and to master was, if you make a mistake on track or in a race, you really have to just put that to one side and then refocus on the job at hand. And I've had the pleasure of working with some very experienced mental coaches, and even from a young age, I've had older people take me under their wing and guide me through different experiences. And I guess from just the years of doing what I've done, it's become a lot more natural.
Yeah, because I can imagine everyone's different and everyone's personality is different, how they manage through those challenges. It's all bespoke, but I could imagine a cool head and a sort of nonchalant approach of, I made a mistake.
Yeah.
But we play on.
Yeah, exactly.
Would be beneficial.
Yeah. Yeah, especially in a car, like there's the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. And the more sort of highly strung you are, the more you get tunnel vision and the more reactive you're driving. And you have to sort of flip it on its head. You got to be calm and composed, and you want to be
so you can see
looking at everything in your peripheral, and everything should be instinctive and feeling. So that's where it comes back to being calm and sort of nonchalant, that you're not then stressing yourself out and the mistakes don't follow one another. You can, make one mistake and not repeat it.
And then you go through 2022 and you achieve that goal. What does it feel like when you finally once you've secured it?
It was pretty awesome. Yeah, that final weekend, the final round was on the streets of the Gold Coast, in Surfers Paradise, and had all of my family, all of my sponsors, a bunch of friends there to share in that moment and that celebration. And yeah, it makes it all worthwhile. It's a massive team effort, and to also have the team there and celebrate, it was, it wasn't an easy weekend. It didn't probably go the way I hoped or expected, but we still got the job done. And yeah, it's been a very good memory.
And then you move to the next season, then you move overseas and you go along that path. Was that a surprise? What did you take away from that experience?
Funnily enough, the week after the Gold Coast, I actually went to the Middle East to do my first sort of international race in Porsches. And it was with the team that was looking at me to drive with them in Europe the following year. So it was sort of a pretty high pressure situation. I had to go over there and perform well to get this opportunity in Europe. And I just won the Australian title. So I think I'm on top of the world, doing awesome. And then I got there and I got P5 or P6, and I was a fair bit off the pace. So it was a shock to the system to realize, I've come this far, but there's still a long way to go. And it was that realization, I think it flipped a switch in me to dig even deeper. There was a part of me that wanted to be like, I'm not good enough for this. I should just stay home and take the easy route. But looking back on it, I'm so happy that I did, bite the bullet and push hard. And ultimately, that was November that I went to the Middle East. And in March the following year, I did move to Europe. So I got the drive. I did good enough to get the drive. And in that period, my driving improved tenfold. By the time I got to Europe, I was where I needed to be. And then by the time I finished up in Europe, I was a completely different driver. So
what So tell me what happened in the time before you went over to Europe. What were you working on?
Basically, all of my weaknesses.
I love that.
I worked out pretty quickly what they were. And then, yeah, I just
lent into that
big time. Yeah.
And how did you work out what those weaknesses were?
Well, it took going to the Middle East and getting
to be exposed.
hacked. Yeah, pretty much. I was exposed, exactly. So I had the data from the current, Super Cup race winner, the current champion, the benchmark really on the world stage.
From the same day.
I had his data.
And forgive me for not knowing, but is the chassis, is the engine, is the tyres, are they all the same consistently? Or
in Porsche Cup racing, everything's identical.
So it really is just driver to driver.
Yeah. So you have an engineer that you work with. Uh-huh. So basically, all the cars are identical, but you can tune the settings. So we can change rear wing angles, make more downforce, ride heights, all the suspension geometry you can change. And there is a lot of...
What percentage would that contribute?
A fairly large amount.
Okay. Not zero.
Definitely not zero.
Yeah.
So it takes a good relationship between a driver and an engineer to understand what I want as a driver, and he needs to understand how to change the car to give me the tools, basically. So, yeah. In the Middle East, I had the exact same setup. Everything was the exact same.
Right.
Couldn't
lean on the engineer.
I couldn't. There was no excuses for me.
Yeah.
And I think, it took that realization that, there was still a long way to go to...
What an experience though to have that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know whether the team, if you weren't available, whether the team would have signed you as the Australian champion. Maybe. But
maybe.
You would have been like, I'm the Australian champion.
Yeah.
I don't need to work on anything.
Yeah.
And gone to Europe, and whereas you had that experience and gone, oh shit.
Yeah.
I need to improve quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And to go back and it's a testament to you to be able to say, lean into those weaknesses.
Yeah.
And then how was the competition over in Europe?
Relentless. Like in Australia here, our grid site, there's about 30 cars on the track at the same time. And the split, when we qualify, basically we have to go out and put our best lap time down, and that sets the order for the races. So
there's 30 on the grid.
There's 30 on the grid.
Wow.
And in qualifying, there's about 20 pros and 10 pro-ams. And the pro-ams are sort of your businessmen that this is their passion, their weekend hobby, but not their full-time thing. Whereas the pros, it's, we're doing this to make a career out of it. And the pro field in Australia is normally split by around 1.5 to 2 seconds in qualifying.
Okay.
Over in Europe, there's a grid of about 28 pros, and there was times where that 28 was split by around half a second.
All right.
So, you might have to be on the A game in Australia, but over there it was from lap 1 on a test day, it was A game. So there was no time to go out and get a feel for it or take in the sights. It was like full intensity from the second you jump in the car. And
those margins are so small.
So small, yeah. And, the pressure from the engineers and from the team they're expecting always that 100% commitment as well. So fortunately over there, you have a lot more time in the car. So in Australia here, we have 8 race weekends, and maybe if you're lucky, you do 8 practice days in a year. Over in Europe, I had 20 race weekends and 25 practice days. So
the days aren't capped?
They're not capped.
Okay.
No.
It's just a funding issue.
It's a funding, yeah, exactly. So with that, you're in the car more often, it becomes a lot more natural, and you call it race fit. Like your eyes in all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in Australia on a practice day, you might be rusty. So you take a few laps to get a feel for it, and then you get into the swing of things. But yeah, over there it was really good competition. And I think the racetracks as well were a different style of track. Here in Australia, it's street circuits and sort of short, tight, old race circuits, whereas in Europe, it's all wide open, fast-flowing Formula 1 tracks.
Mm-hmm.
So
plenty of runoff.
And the racing just became insane. Like you'd have 5 cars trying to fight for one corner, and yeah, there was a lot of damage done in that year. Fortunately, not always my car, but sometimes my car.
Mm.
But yeah, I think it was eye-opening for sure.
And then you come back home, and was there a decision to be made as to whether you stayed overseas or?
There was, and it was a pretty tricky decision to make. Basically, I had the opportunity to stay on and do another year in Super Cup and German Carrera Cup, with the goal then to, get picked up by a Porsche or Ferrari or Lamborghini to basically slip into a GT program. The other option was to come home, and sort of go all out in the V8 Supercars. And when I was in Europe, I was 24 years old when I finished up in Europe. And the person that won the Super Cup title was 20. So there was team owners being like, oh, you're a little bit old. And I felt old as well over there. Like there was some kids that were 16 racing Porsche Super Cup, and I think that played a little part of it. I reckon if I went over there 2 years earlier, there might have been more opportunity. But when I was over there, I sort of felt like, to do another year would be awesome, but what's the end goal? Like there didn't seem to be a plan. And as much as I tried,
are they saying that? Are they putting that age position because of their perception of skill versus, or is it a longevity thing for their program?
I think it's a longevity thing more than anything.
And then the second question to that is, do the likes of Lewis Hamilton and Alonso change that dynamic now?
I'd hope so. For sure, motorsport is a sport that you can do for a lot longer than, say, footy or, anything where you're putting your body on the line. We just get to sit down and steer a car around a track. But I think there's still that mental aspect where a younger driver is going to take more risk and, have maybe just the life opportunity to devote more time to everything. But, even if as a team owner and team manager now, if there was an 18-year-old that was doing just as well as a 24-year-old and, had the same ingredients, you'd probably pick the 18-year-old. So I understood that at the time and it made sense. But for me as well, I was engaged. I love Australia. I love where I grew up. And I wanted to do more than just drive a race car as well. So there was sort of that aspect that was pulling me back to Australia. And after a few long discussions, trying to weigh up the pros and cons and think about what opportunities there were for my future, it was decided that, coming back to Australia and starting my own race team, going all out to try and get a full-time Supercars drive, that it sort of ticked all the boxes. Like I could be a professional driver, I could live in Australia, be with my family, and still race full-time. That's just the dream to me.
What is the dynamics of having your own team and trying to find that supercar start? What does that look like?
It is difficult. Like it's tricky to wear all the hats at the same time. So I really have to focus on being in the specific role that I'm currently doing. So like when I'm in team world, I'm just an engineer, or I'm just a driver coach and just a team manager. If I'm in racing driver world, I am just a racing driver. And by having that split, it enables me to sort of, focus more deeply on the tasks at hand. But it's challenging. It's still early days. I think if you ask me the same question in 5 years' time, I might have a different response. But currently it's working quite well. I've got a co-drive this year in the Bathurst 1000 with Anton De Pasquale and Team 18. So this will be my debut in the Supercars Championship, and I'm really looking forward to it. So the team's had a great start to this year. We've got 3 drivers now in Porsche Sprint Challenge, and also running my own car in Porsche Carrera Cup. And even
not just running that car.
Leading the Carrera Cup.
And going backwards, you came home and won 2024.
Yeah.
And so then you're at the whole thing, and then you're coming back and you're leading at the moment there.
Yeah. So it's been a pretty crazy 18 months since we got back from Europe, and I've got a baby on the way due in August. So just to add to it all, it's going to be a pretty exciting year.
Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
I always think 0 to 1 is the biggest step. So just letting you.
Yeah.
It's a bit of
I'll keep that in
hot
mind.
take on that. And then what's the future then? What does it look like for you then in terms of the team?
So the team, our plan is to run 3 cars in Porsche Sprint Challenge and 3 cars in Porsche Carrera Cup. And I've been quite lucky over the past few months to make some pretty key hirings to help me run this team. And I think down the track, my work in the team is going to be less and less from a management perspective and more so from a driver talent and sort of nurturing perspective, which then gives me more time to go full-time as a racing driver myself. So fortunately, as a racing driver in supercars, it's not every weekend. There's 13 rounds in the year. There's 2 test days. There's obviously a lot of sponsor and media commitments on top of that, but you still have the time and the freedoms to actually do something else. So, that's why I'm so happy to have this race team. I can provide opportunities to the next crop of drivers, the next crop of mechanics or engineers that are coming through, and give them a platform to not only develop their skills, but also showcase them and hopefully get them to where I was and beyond.
How do you get a Guernsey in the Super Cup as a team? Into the V8s?
That's not really on my radar, to be honest. I think stick to what you know and you do well.
Yeah.
And I know Porsches really well. Everyone on our team, we know Porsches like the back of our hand. And Supercars is a different business model as well. So the team we're running, it's a customer racing team. So drivers come to us, they pay the fee, and we provide a service. Mm-hmm. Whereas a Supercars team is a complete professional outfit where you have to go finding your own sponsors, building your own cars. It's probably 4 or 5 times the size of the team that we're running. So I don't want to bite off more than I can chew. I still want to have a career as a racing driver. And I think...
But the allure to V8s is still there, obviously, for you personally?
Me personally, that's exactly what I want to do.
Yeah, right.
And I think by having that separation as well, you're not going to be trying to do 3 things on the same weekend.
Yeah,
you can go and be a racing driver, and you can go be a team owner.
And what's the path to the V8s for you personally?
So this year I've got the drive in V8s as a co-driver for Bathurst and the Bend 500. So the 2 enduro events of the year where there's 2 drivers in the car.
Per car. Yeah.
So first and foremost, I have to perform in the supercars this year. Finish every race and be fast. And then, basically it's a big networking business, right? So I have to be in the right place at the right time, know the right people, and just, go searching for an opportunity to go full-time next year.
Keep those doors open.
Exactly, yeah.
And what's the difference between, other than the size, I guess, what's the big difference between racing a Porsche and
the lap speed or the lap time's pretty much identical. So they're just as fast as one another, but they do their lap times a little bit differently. So a supercar, faster in a straight line, Porsche's faster through the corners and can brake later. So the net effect is they're similar speed. But the fundamentals of driving them is quite different. So first and foremost, in a Porsche, we're on the left-hand side of the car, left-hand drive. The supercars are right-hand drive. Porsches, I brake with my left foot. Whereas in a supercar, you have to brake with your right foot because you have to use a clutch and a gear shift as well. So there is some key driving techniques that are different, but fundamentally for me, the biggest difference is the tyres themselves. So each tyre compound is, it's basically a completely different thing to learn. So if you can master the tyre, then you've mastered the car pretty much. So that's what I need to learn now in the lead up to this enduro gig this year is getting my head around how these tyres behave.
So you say that, and this is probably away from the audience, but now I'm just intrigued. When you say it's tyre management.
Yeah.
And so therefore, is that just managing that in corners? Because the hotter you are through a corner, the more tyre degradation occurs.
Yeah.
And then what happens after that? You lose speed because there's not enough tread?
Pretty much. Like, a racing tyre lasts about 200 kilometres.
Okay.
In the first 30 kilometres, you have a peak where they've got the most performance.
And that's because the heat's required?
Yeah, it's the energy in the tyre, the compound, and the way that the actual rubber's laid on top of one another.
Okay.
They provide the best performance straight away when they're brand new. After about 35 Ks, they drop in performance, they hold similar lap times for, say, 100 Ks. And then it gets to a point where they drop off the cliff and you literally feel like you're driving on ice. So if as a racing driver, especially in a long endurance race, if you can prolong that period where they're performing well, then you're going to be doing better. And it's also, if you're qualifying the car, if you can drive it literally at the peak and not trying to go above it and definitely not driving under it, you're going to start further up the grid. So it's understanding sort of all of the little components that make up to a complete racing driver, and understanding this tyre and how it behaves in a range of environments and range of circuits and setups. It's not something you can learn in a couple of days. It is I need to be in every debrief with the team, and literally, even if I'm not driving the car itself, listening to the other drivers on the team talk about the car, it's all data points that you can pull from to, get your head around it quicker.
With a relatively young set of shoulders, you've been in so many high-performing teams. You are obviously the common denominator to your teams that you've been in, obviously, but they're all different countries, different groups, different objectives.
Mm-hmm.
How have you managed to communicate and build that rapport in such a sort of high-stress stakes environment, given that you haven't just stayed with the one team that goes with you? You've had to sort of be cherry picked rather, into each individual teams?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's just understanding the different roles that people have on a team as well, and sort of understanding what people's strengths and weaknesses are. And if there's I guess the thing that I've learned how to do, which has probably played to my strengths, is I can explain a situation a bunch of different ways. And maybe I can read if people understand it or not, but I guess it takes time to form those relationships. But when I went to Europe, I was pretty lucky. Like, I obviously went there on my own. I literally lived in an apartment above the race team, so I was seeing everyone every day. So it was more of like a friendship you develop more than just a working relationship. And I think in that you understand each other better. And I've sort of taken that same approach no matter what team it is. So, all of my mechanics that work for me, the technicians, I'm good mates with all of them. On the Supercars team, we're doing this together we all love what we do, and we share a common interest. So it's pretty easy to just make friends and communicate well.
Would you fix anything in the sport that now you're so experienced in it and tasted so much success? Would you fix anything, change anything in the sport itself?
Yeah, it was a pretty big reason why I actually came home and started my own team. Was when I went to Europe, I realized that Australia specifically, we're not really nurturing talent the way we need to. And I felt like I was a little bit underprepared when I got to Europe. My goal for my own team is to basically guide drivers and give them the experience they need to get to Europe with the same skill set and the same, range of things that they need to hit the ground running over there. From what I'd change is, from a cost perspective, it needs to be cheaper. Everything's getting out of hand with just people focusing money on the wrong areas. And I guess in Australia, there's so much focus on just understanding how to drive the car, but they sort of forget that there's so much more to a racing driver than just being behind the driver's seat or being behind the steering wheel. So, that comes with how to go out and raise the funds, how to talk to teams and go and find opportunities, how to go live on the other side of the world and be comfortable and confident over there in new environments. And, you can be the best driver in the world, but if you don't have the ingredients to do the other things, then you're going to struggle to make a career. And
that's such great advice and great mentorship, because you've experienced that and you've been able to see the shortcomings.
Mm-hmm.
So good. You've raced, let's say, almost 300 races.
Yep.
You've won more than 60 of them. You've podiumed more than 100 of them. What's been the biggest takeaway? What's been the biggest lesson?
It's not over till it's over. That's probably the big one. Like you can have a race where things feel like they're falling to pieces, but then you cross the line with a good result because other things have happened that make it come to you. So yeah, being relentless in your preparation is a big one, and just having confidence in yourself and the people around you to make the most of every opportunity. I think, yeah, it's a lot of races and a lot of experience, but I'm still learning. Every race is different. There's new challenges that come up every day as a driver, and I think that's what I love the most. Is no day is the same.
I love that. What motivates you, rather? Because you won in 22, you won in 24, you're back in 25.
Yeah.
Is it the allure? Is it the keep performing to get to the V8s? Is that's what's driving you each morning?
Yeah, it's funny now. There's sort of two things driving me. Like, one is getting to the V8 Supercars and becoming a full-time driver, but the other is then setting up and growing my business to have success from a team perspective. So,
and that's directly correlated.
100%. Yeah. So the best thing I can do this year is win the Courier Cup title again, because that's winning for my team, but it's also proving to anyone in Supercars that I've got what it takes to go out and drive one of their cars. So,
is there a common relationship between going from Porsche to the V8s, or do you have to go through the V8 line?
Well, it's been done before.
Right.
There's been a few drivers in history to go from Courier Cup to Supercars, and there's actually been some that have gone from Formula Ford to Supercars. So recently, though, the pathway's very much been through Super 2. And that's, it's driven by the teams, obviously, because they've all got Super 2 programs. They want to nurture, they want to grow their talent in the lower category.
Yeah.
So again, it makes sense, but I think from my perspective, it's a business decision to stay in Courier Cup. It's where I've excelled. I can put together a program and actually get on track and get more experience, be in front of the right people. And to go to Super 2 would sort of be a step sideways in a way. So,
and potentially a detriment to your team racing.
Correct, yeah. But I also, even without the team, like, I really do believe in what Courier Cup does for a driver. Like, I believe that it gives you the skill set to go out and you can drive anything you want. Like, there's no underestimating the challenge of driving a V8 supercar. Like, they are different cars, but if you have the mindset to focus on, you learn how to learn, right? It's still a race car with 4 wheels, black round tires. I want to be the driver that sort of proves to the Supercars paddock that Courier Cup is still nurturing this talent. You still can pick from there. Like, because I believe in it, I also, I want to make that step
Be the
again.
example.
Yeah, it hasn't really happened probably for 10 years.
Okay.
But there's no reason why it shouldn't.
Well, you'll be 3-time out of 3. So if there's anyone that's going to be that, it's going to be you, man.
Yeah, I hope so.
We'll be watching Bathurst.
Thank you.
And in that respect, because the cars are different in V8s, what's the marker? Is it your teammate in terms of how well you perform?
Yeah, for
on
sure.
the day?
Like, there's your teammate, but then there's also the other co-drivers. So there's 24 cars on the grid, and there's 24 main drivers, 24 co-drivers. So I'm a co-driver this year, and there's no expectation to be matching the primary driver. You obviously have to be close to them in performance, but the biggest benchmark is the other co-drivers, because that's
relative to their benchmarks to their main driver.
Not really, no, just relative to them.
Okay.
Because again, like,
is the performance not that different?
It shouldn't be.
Okay.
No. So, like, if you're talking tenths of a second really over one lap, but then also in endurance racing, there's performance over a race stint. So you're not only looking for that one perfect lap you can put down, but can you put down 20? And that's the challenge, and that's sort of the art of racing cars, especially at this level, is being able to go out, be robotic, and actually feel the car and drive to its maximum potential, even as the tyres are degrading. So Yeah, I'll need to really prepare well and probably work harder than the other co-drivers to get there this year, because I don't have the same experience in these cars. But fortunately, I've got an amazing team around me and Team 18 to provide the information I need. Anton, my primary driver, he's been so awesome at fast tracking what I need to know, because obviously he's been there and done it for the past 7 years in this category. So the things that I might find confusing, he knows the answer to like that. So, yeah, I get a few test days in the car as well. I had one last year in December. I did a few laps after the Sydney Motorsport Park round in February, and then I get basically 2 more days in the car before the Enduros. So those 2 days will be quite important to really get a feel for it and get up to speed.
So good, man. I can only wish you all the very, very best.
Thank you.
And in everything you do, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
It's been awesome.
It's been fantastic.
I love talking high performance, and particularly in areas of sport where I have no idea. It's so good, and it's also, I love the motorsport generally, because probably a lot of other sports, but because you've got the human factor, you've got the skill set that you need, you've got the team needed around you, and the actual machine. Plus, you've got competitors. It's not an individual sport. No. It's not just qualifying of just who can do the fastest lap and then we all go home. It is that I'm trying to beat you, you're trying to beat me, and that's the game. Yeah,
it's pretty addictive.
Yeah, I love it. All right, before you go, final 5 questions that we ask everyone. Yep. I haven't briefed you, so by all means take some time. But Harri Jones, what does success mean to you?
I think in a sport, results are obviously a big part of success, but as I touched on earlier, I think if you're only happy and you're only feeling successful when you're winning, even the best wouldn't feel successful because you're not winning every day. So to me, results have always driven me, but also now, making memories, enjoying what I do and feeling happy, waking up every morning, that's what I would call success. And from a team perspective, I think if I can run a business that provides opportunities and platforms for people to showcase and develop their skills, then I'd feel success in their own success as well. So I guess it takes on a few different meanings.
I love that. What does happiness mean to you? Might change in August.
It might change, yeah. With a baby on the way, it'll definitely change. I'm happy right now, so I don't know. I think happiness is just a feeling when life's good, life's content.
Your morning routine, what does that look like normally?
Pretty simple. Get up, get out of bed.
When are you up?
When I wake up.
Really?
Yeah. No, I'm pretty good. Like I wake up normally just naturally at 6:30, jump out, have a shower, have a coffee, and then cruise into work pretty much. Yeah.
Love that. A quote you would tell yourself, your younger self, or you put on a billboard, what would be the life lesson of Harri Jones?
It's pretty cliche, but never give up. Yeah.
And then a guest that you think it'd be great to listen to or for us to have on the show. Hit me.
Sandra Brody. She's my driver manager, and she's got a pretty awesome story. My 2 older brothers have stories of their own that I think are quite cool. Matthew Jones and Nicholas Jones. So, there's 3 guests for you.
Fantastic, man. Harri, thank you so much for your time, mate. And as I said, I'm inspired by the path that you have led and continue to lead, and being able to prove to the world that there is that crossover between the Porsches and the V8s and everything doing with your team and inspiring the younger generation and giving them the tools that maybe weren't available readily for you. So all the best, man, and thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
That was another episode of the Success Times Happiness podcast. Next time you're behind the wheel, turn to the person next to you safely and tell them all about the show. It means a lot. Huge thanks to Harri for his time and sharing his story. If something in this episode sparked a thought or hit home, let us know. Drop a comment, share it with a friend, or tell us your version of turning passion into purpose. We'd love to hear all about it. Until next time, peace.